Before I get into this video, I do just want to give a little bit of a disclaimer. This video depicts a game that is still in its closed alpha. Everything is subject to change. Things that may be an issue now may not be the case in the future. So, you just got access to Project CW and you're thinking to yourself, what the fuck do I play? And you decide, fuck it. Raketa is the choice for me because rocket pods are cool. And then you get stomped on and never play Raketa again because it's trash. Well, it's actually because you're trash. New to the game, and you haven't discovered the nuances of the agent. Well, today, I'm here to teach you just that. First things first, Raketa isn't that good until you level him up. He becomes decent around level 5 and is nice once you hit 6 and get the rocket pod upgrade. It feels really good to play once you fully level him up, but to be fair, that's how most of the vehicles are in this game. It honestly works well that way. You feel like you're powering up every time you level up your agent. Now, let's make some things clear about Raketa. If you want to snipe, that's not the vehicle for you. Raketa is a brawler, and does his best at close to medium ranges where you can rocket pod people in the face and beat them down with the auto reloader. But just like any other vehicle, if you don't hit crits, you will underperform, especially since the passive is crit based. This is the build that you're going to want to be using for Raketa. First slot, which can be upgraded from the get-go, will be the SAD rounds, as these boost the damage and allow you to crit a lot easier with the module damage boost in order to get your passive going. Second slot, you're going to want to take the thermal sleeve. What this to say it was not a sniper, why get the sleeve? That's precisely the reason why you get the sleeve, as it extends your passive by an extra 10 seconds. So this extra 10 seconds is important, as it theoretically allows you to chain your passive back to back for an indefinite amount of time. On that note, I should explain the passive, which when you score 3 crits, it reduces your reload time to about 2.5 seconds per round, which might not sound like a lot, but until you realize you can shoot 8 rounds in 20 seconds, especially with the passive being extended by an extra 10 seconds. Once the first 10 seconds is up, this means that you can start stacking your passive again, and this is how you can extend it indefinite amount of time. Now, for the third module, it's not super important early on, so if you're low on currency, it is best to skip this one for the time being, but you will want to eventually pick it up. The Altage for the forward speed and augment on the passive. For slot 4, just ignore it. Even if you have enough currency, it is literally just a currency sink. There's no reason to get it, as your rockets never need more energy than you have, since they don't cost too much, and your energy is already back at 100 by the time your rockets are back up as well. For slot 5, you want the Ural. All its bonuses are good, plus whenever you get tracked, it will make your rocket pods come up 3 seconds faster. Now, slot 6 is where things get really spicy. You will want to choose the M variant, which is the middle one of the rockets, as it provides the largest amount of damage. K rockets increase the splash radius, which is not super helpful to be fair, and the C variants does increase the speed and penetration. But again, this is not super useful against heavily armored targets, and you will do the same damage to light armored targets with C or M variants of rockets, so it's just better to pick the middle rocket, which is the M variant. Slot 7 is still in development, so there's nothing I can have you pick here because you literally can't pick anything. Slot 8 is whatever your preference is. You can choose whichever of the 3. It honestly doesn't matter too much to me, as I don't care much about increasing my spotting in this game, as I don't see it as being super useful. Slot 9, you'll want Aphorism for the 25% forward speed, which is a lot. It essentially boosts the vehicle quite considerably. So let's just say that the vehicle space is 50. With this upgrade alone, it allows it to go 62.5 without the boost. I'm pretty sure the base is a little bit higher than 50, so the boost of 25% is a lot more. Slot 10 is what makes this vehicle come together, is it gives you the option for the auto reloader to have an extra 2 rounds in it, but also makes the reload for each round only 6 seconds with a 1.9 second interclip. The downside is the ammo rack damage is increased, but it is a rare occurrence to get hit in the ammo rack, in this vehicle specifically. You could also choose Quiche if ramming is your preference, as it does boost your ramming damage and does help negate the Raketa's abysmal sprint energy. On the other side of the coin, the Scala is not worth it at all. Just like, don't pick this option. It would have been much better if this option was for a different slot, then it might be a little bit more optional for you to take. But essentially, the 10 extra rockets barely does negligible damage, and it only makes it that each rocket barrage is a longer amount of time and doesn't boost the vehicle in any other aspects, so it's not worth it at all. Now, onto the perks of the vehicle. Perk 1, the only option really is the fastest gun perk. It's just the better option for slot 1. For slot 2, you do have a choice between Deadeye and Locked and Loaded. Both are good. I do prefer Deadeye for the mid to close range combat, just because the increased accuracy helps with hitting those crit spots, especially at close to medium range. For slot 3, it is honestly another tough choice between Know Your Enemy and Stimpak. I think that, you know your enemy is slightly better, as it does play in hand with your passive, because you do need crits for your passive to activate. You might as well make those crits do a little bit more damage with the extra 15%, but I could see the argument being made as well for the Stimpak, since it does help with the abysmal sprint that the vehicle has. So the Stimpak could also be another good option. And again, it's also 10% increased reload. So you may make the argument, well, your crits do 15% more damage, but Stimpak gives you a 10% increase in DPM. The DPM helps out if you don't hit your crits. The crits help out if you hit your crits, essentially. So if you're only hitting crits, then or if you hit crits the majority of the time, I would say Know Your Enemy. If you're not hitting crits or you're finding it hard to hit crits, I think Stimpak is the better option then. Now, how do you play Raketa? You may be wondering. And pre-6, you are going to want to go around and just be kind of like a pesky little mosquito waiting for the opportunity to jump on someone who is low, or has just used a repair kit, as damaging someone who is repairing stops their repair. There's also some other things you can do, and you'll definitely learn it as you play on. But one thing I do enjoy, or did enjoy before I had the full 5 shots, was firing 2 shots out of the 3 and holding the last one to make it seem like I don't have any ammo left. And this will sometimes make it so that people will pop their repair kit and try to heal up. And once they do that, since you already have a shell loaded, you can just cancel out their repair and keep fighting them from there on out. And then once you do hit 6, you are going to want to start looking to assassinate defenders. A well-placed rocket barrage, once you hit 6 and have the upgrade, it can melt through the full HP bar of some of the healthiest defenders in the game. I think the only defender in the game currently that cannot be fully killed with a Raketa rocket barrage is a Titan with the full health and HE protection build, but that's because it has 4k HP and takes 30% reduced HE damage. Yeah. But Raketa also, he really does do well against isolated targets. That's the thing, is you're going to want to find isolated targets and kind of just assassinate them. If they can't get any assistance, you usually beat them just completely. And especially if you get a rocket barrage, if you rocket barrage an enemy and they take a shit ton of damage, most of the time you can just finish them off. So that's why it's always important, if you can, because it's not always super easy to hit a rocket barrage, but if you hit a rocket barrage to go in on whoever, it was, in case you left them at maybe like 1 or 2 HP. And once you get your level 10 slot and have the 5-round autoloader, if you do proc your passive, you could become an absolute monster and steamroll your way, even through like a 2v1 or a 3v1. Unless, of course, you run into a Phantom. Then you're kind of just fucked. But that plays into the part of the passive can technically be unlimitedly procced. And one thing I do notice with the passive is if you proc it 3 times in a row, it will completely fill your ammo. So the 3rd time you proc it, you'll get all 5 shells back, even if you have none in the chamber. Now, you may be asking, how the hell do you use the rockets? Every time I use the rockets just fly everywhere, and they don't hit anything at all. That usually happens a lot when you're on flat ground. The arc will give you issues if you're not used to it. As demonstrated here, the best way to use the rockets is to slightly angle yourself back, usually against some rubble or a small hill, so that you can angle your vehicle downwards for a perfect salvo. It is best to practice in the firing range before you use Raketa to understand how the rocket salvo will fly, especially on different terrains such as flat ground, slightly sloped ground, stuff like that. It will kind of give you an understanding of how and when to use your rockets for the best results. When it comes to maps, the only map where Raketa doesn't do the greatest is Scarred City, as most of the fighting happens within the city, which is flat ground, and more specifically, city fights happen on the bomb game mode. Raketa likes varied elevation, not the flat ground, in order to get a good rocket barrage off. But the map is okay when it is on Conquest, as the fighting can happen in the field where the terrain varies, and it just feels like the map is more fleshed out for Conquest and not so much for bomb. On Blossom Crash during the bomb game mode, Raketa does well, as it is one of the best maps for Raketa, as the canal walls allow you to get an easy barrage off on a stationary target, as well as also all of the ditches that could be used to prop your vehicle slightly back and get off the perfect salvo. And on Conquest, due to the variations in elevation everywhere, it allows for you to pick and choose locations where you want to start engagements. With Sunstroke, it's another map where it's kind of bad for Raketa on Plant and Diffuse, because most of the time you will fight in the city around B, but for Conquest, it is a good map since the elevation changes everywhere, and the mountains and hills allow you to set up for salvo. This is especially present within the A site, which is in that, like, stadium. The mounds of dirt and stuff could be used to prop up your vehicle in order to get off a good salvo. Nordoko is a decent map as the satellite dish's walls are angled in such a way that you can sit at the entrance of one and wait for someone to drive into the middle and then salvo them. This map has good elevation changes in other areas as well that help out Raketa, like the tunnel between A and E. That's a good spot to set up, or the B and D tunnel as well. It's another good area to set up to surprise people with your rocket salvo. Finally, there is Friendly Dam, where the best spot, hands down, is sea capture for Raketa, as the small mounds are perfect for you to set up and blast people as they come to the point to contest you. There's also other great places on the map for Raketa as well. E fighting is pretty good. B has the stair steps that you can use to prop your vehicle up in order to get a salvo off. A side has some good elevation changes for you to surprise people with your Raketa. Overall, Raketa is a fun vehicle. I also wouldn't consider it inherently overpowered, as it does take quite a bit of skill to properly use the rocket salvo. But once you get it down, it is extremely fun to use and rewarding. So if you found this vehicle not to be you for your first go around, by leveling it up and practicing the salvo, you may come to at very least appreciate the agent.